Hi, Mary. Thanks for joining us early. We usually get started 2 or 3 minutes after the top of the hour.
Great, thank you. Welcome everyone to the Wallet Interoperability Special Interest Group for April 14th, 2025. Today on the agenda, we will hear about Multipaz. This is an OWF project of Android libraries and reference applications for working with real-world identity from David Zeuthen and Troy Kensinger of Google. Thank you so much for joining the call. We're really looking forward to hearing about the project. Let's see, we are recording this call. It will be posted on the meeting page here later today. We are following the Linux Foundation antitrust policy and the OpenWallet Foundation Code of Conduct. Let's see, are there any announcements from anybody before we jump into our agenda?
Shar, I do have an announcement. I'm going to send out a note to all OWF project maintainers and other folks in our ecosystem, letting them know we're going to have a sign-up page for the Wallet Interoperability SIG, so other projects want to show off the way the Multipaz team is going to talk about their work, talk about where their project is going, and talk about how they, where they need help, how folks can contribute. That sign-up sheet should be done before the end of this call, and I'm going to send it out to everybody. And in addition, we have the architecture special interest group, which happens immediately after the Wallet Interoperability SIG, and that is Tracy and David Alexander are the co-chairs of that, and they'll be talking about all things wallet architecture. And I'll share a couple of links in the chat while David and his team are talking about their amazing project. So that's it for me. Sorry.
Awesome. No, thank you so much, Sean. Let's see. Just a quick announcement about the next call next week. Our presenter will be Timo Glastra of Animo, and he will talk about the 3 new TypeScript projects incubated at the OpenWallet Foundation related to OpenID for VC, DCQL, and OpenID Federation. So definitely plan to join us for that as well. Let's see. In terms of quick project updates for Akapai, release 1.3.0 RC1 is out. This is continuing the removal of AIP 1.0 protocols into plugins from core. There's also discussion about criteria for the 1.3.0 release. Yeah, that's pretty much what's going on there. Does anybody on the call have any other project updates? And I also just wanted to see if anybody on the call went to IAW and would like to share anything about their experiences there, any takeaways. So yeah, any project updates, or if anybody would like to share about that, or any other announcements before we start our presentation.
I could offer a couple thoughts about IW, if that's useful.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah, thank you so much.
A lot of good discussion about agentic AI and identity-related concerns like authorizing agents to interact with services. Lots of discussion about the model context protocol, and the general consensus that the identity community, having lots of scars from doing things poorly and then making them better, could hopefully guide and assist the model context protocol community in adopting established patterns like OAuth, which is really close to what they're trying to do. And so there was some really good discussion there. I anticipate we'll have more discussions at the next IW in 6 months, in October, kind of about the same thing, in the sense that they will hopefully some progress will have been made. It's a fast-moving thing, and so that's quite good. Of course, a lot of other really great discussions about various technologies and how to be best applied. I will say there was a sense that I detected that there wasn't a lot of arguing about credentials and protocols, as I suspect most companies are in a delivery phase of contracts they have. it seems this sounds a little bit weird, but when there's hope for contracts and paid work, there tends to be more arguing about the right way to do things. After people have received paid work, they're mostly focused on delivery, and so that was good as a sign, but it was definitely sort of represented a little bit of topic shift, not wholesale, but the additional topic of AI plus sort of the decreased initial fervor of the VC discussions, netted some of that. There were some minorly controversial topics. There was a big discussion about the danger of phone home. Even if you don't do it, even having the capability of doing it within a spec can cause issues within a regime change of a particular government that might be implementing stuff. So I was not in the middle of that. I was an observer to that argument, so I don't have a lot else to share, but definitely a discussion about the importance of architecturally not phoning home.
Interesting. Awesome. Thank you so much. That's really great to hear. All right, let's see. Any other announcements or updates or introductions before we start our presentation? Great. All right, I will go ahead and pass it over to David and Troy. Thank you again so much for joining us.
Cool, thank you. I'm just gonna present some slides. We have about 20 slides, I think, so we'll be able to get through those in, I think, 30 to 40 minutes, and then that should leave some time for Q&A, I hope. So can everybody see my slides?
We can see your screens, David, and you look good.
Perfect, cool. So yeah, I'm just gonna start introducing myself. So I'm David Zeuthen, been working for Google for a while, working on digital identity since probably 2018. And I lead our open source project for building components for digital identity, Multipaz, which this presentation is about. I'll hand it over to my coworker, Troy.
Hi, everybody. I'm Troy. I too have been at Google for quite some time now, but I work in all things hardware attestation and digital identities on the Android security team. And yeah, I think we're gonna talk a little about Multipaz today, and yeah, looking forward to a lot of good questions. So I can go ahead and kind of give folks a brief intro of what this is, but David, you want to go to the next slide? But I want to sort of start kind of with a bit of an icebreaker and ask folks like, how many mobile driver's license do people think are currently in circulation in the U.S.? And you can put it in chat, or you can just say it if you think you know. But does anybody have an idea? No? Okay. So, well, spoiler, I don't think really anyone knows. You can click next again. I think, yeah. So in March 2024, there was at least 5 million in circulation. And this map here is actually from the TSA of all of the states that do accept a mobile driver's license at the airport. And so I think 5 million is actually probably a lot lower than what it currently is today. I just don't have the most updated numbers to reflect that. But the point of me of asking this group, if you want to go to the next slide, David, is that global identity is growing, especially in the US and definitely at a global scale. Like we're seeing a lot of interest in the EU. There's a lot of countries in Asia that are really starting to ramp up and either making changes to their current digital identity solutions, or if they're or creating new ones outright. I think it was just at the Security Technology Alliance meeting in San Diego. I think it was like back in February. We had the UAE approached us and asked us about what thoughts we had about options for producing a digital identity there. So that was the first time that I actually heard like a country outside of Asia or Europe getting more interested. So it's an emerging technology, and I think we're going to see a lot of it over the next couple of years. Because of how important it is to scale, this is kind of where Multipaz comes in. So if you want to go to the next slide, David. Our mission here is to build something that is secure and privacy preserving, and it supports all the countries and states that I just mentioned here. Next slide. So when you actually think about how this actually works, like how we can support, countries and maybe even third-party wallets to support digital identity, you think of the three-party system when it comes to digital identity. So first you have your government here, right, which issues the identity itself or the credential. And it could be more than just an MDL. It could be a personal ID. It could be an insurance card. It could be anything related to the government. And you go next, click again. Then you have the component or the party of actually having the wallet on your phone, right? This could be a national wallet developed by a government, or it could be sort of your third-party options like Apple Wallet, Google Wallet, Samsung Wallet, things like that. If you click next again, you have then you have your verifier, or your relying parties. So you have your stores, you have your, I guess sometimes the government could also be the relying party if you're like working through like an insurance claim or something, if you have a national healthcare program of sorts. But the idea is that you have this party here that, they check your ID, right? Or any other credential that you give it to. And if you click next one more time, one more after this. Multipaz has infrastructure and has basically everything you need, like a example app, the libraries, everything you want to actually build this three-party system is actually included in Multipaz. So it's just an all-in-one SDK that folks can leverage for this use case. So, but I'm gonna let David tell you a bit more about the specifics of it. And if you go ahead and take over, David, feel free.
Cool, thanks, Troy. Yeah, so I'll talk a little bit more about what Multipaz is. I'll probably dabble in some of the history, because like understanding a project's history is usually like helps you understand what the project is about, where we're at right now, where we're going. So yeah, as Troy mentioned, it was basically, it's a set of libraries and applications intended to implement real-world identity. Initially, we started it, we just wanted to implement MDL. We'll talk more about why this particular team in Google got into that thing. So the initial focus was that, but the current focus is a bit wider. It's like we're actually doing things in multi-platform. Our code runs on iOS. It's used on the server side in production, and we support more than just ISO MDoc. So it's hosted at the OpenWallet Foundation. We contributed the project 2 years ago. It's been available since 2020, and it's under the Apache license. So yeah, it implements issuing, provisioning, storage, presentment, verification of credentials. So today we support ISO MDoc, IETF JORD VC, and OpenID Foundation protocols for presentment, provisioning, and also the Digital Credentials API in W3C. It is being used in Google Wallet and other wallets in production. There are MDL readers that use our code. We have code for doing the very important part of proofing the user and collecting evidence, the whole step that goes on when you actually decide to get a credential on your phone. We have support, or we use the built-in support on Android and iOS for hardware-backed key store, and also for the issuers that don't want to use the hardware-backed key store on whatever phone they're provisioning on. We have support for a cloud secure area as well. So it's production quality stack. It has passed UL certifications in some of the products that it's been used in. I mean, you don't really certify a library. That's not how certification works. But it can pass the certification. You certify products. And we are not doing a product. We are a project. We are a set of libraries. We were also part of the Sprint Funker project last year, phase 1 and 2, where we built a wallet based on all this code and had it evaluated by the Sprint project. It was a lot of fun. So yeah, to talk about the history of the project. So I think about 2018, my director in Android security decided that digital identity is going to be very important. And we need to protect our users in Android for like potentially bad implementations of digital identity solutions. Someone mentioned phoning home before, right? And there are many really bad ways to implement identity that hurts user privacy. So we decided to get ahead of that and try and participate in some of the SDOs where this is being worked on to make sure that whatever they came up with wouldn't be bad for our billions of Android users. Basically, that's the reason that I got involved in this. So late 2018, I went to my first ISO meeting and learned about digital identity. I had some background in digital identity, but not much. So that's kind of where my journey in this digital identity space started. So in 2019, we decided to build a hardware-backed API called the Identity Credential API for Android, similar to Android Key Store. And we also started saying, okay, let's implement actually these MDL reader applications, MDL wallet applications people are talking about. That was interesting. We went to the second MDL test event, which was in Omaha, Nebraska, and nothing worked, basically. At that point, the standard was not very mature. It worked great back in the lab, right? When it's just you have one device, but the ISO community learned a lot about how to do proximity protocols. So finally in 2020, of course, COVID hit, so we couldn't do any proximity Interop events. But we started factoring out the code in our existing applications into a support library, which is, if you go back at our Git history, that was the first commit, like March 2020. We released Android 11, which had this shiny new Identity Credential API. We ended up actually not using this because it ended up being just a key store API, like Android Key Store actually was sufficient. It's still part of Android, people can use it, but we don't really use it. So we kind of pivoted to being like, let's build a good support library. We saw that the community building MDL apps could really use a good solid reference implementation. And at the same time in 2020, our reference apps, they started actually working really well. So 2021 rolls around, we finally published the ISO standard, which was like a very big milestone. We went with COVID protocols to Interop testing in both Rotterdam and Houston, and things actually worked really nice. Like we could like present this hardware-backed credential and things work really well. So 2022, you start seeing MDLs be appearing in the US. I think Apple Wallet was the first one to launch in Maryland. Our team worked with our friends in Google Wallet to add MDL support, and Google Wallet launched a beta version pretty quickly. We had more Interop testing. These events are always fun in Louisville and Brisbane in Australia. So 2023, a lot of people were actually copy pasting our code. We started doing releases back then because a lot of people came up to me and asked, can you please just do a release on Maven? So we started doing that. OpenWallet Foundation had approached us, asked, hey, do you want to be in the OpenWallet Foundation? Do you want to contribute to the project? And it was already an open source project. And as you know, Android is open source, the Android open source project. So this was very aligned with some of our missions. We wanted it to be easier for like third-party contributors to come in. We started like realizing that it would be useful to actually build a couple of abstractions so you can store your credential in different kinds of secure hardware. So that was the genesis of our secure area interface. We started doing a cloud secure area backed on that. So you could choose either to store it locally on the device if the device has a secure element, and a cloud secure area if the device does not. We had another test event in Paris. And at this point, test events were mostly a matter of routine. Everything seemed to work. A lot of people actually tested against our implementation because it's open source before we actually went to the test event. So 2024, we started adding support for the W3C Digital Credentials API. That work started probably back in 2022, 2023, when like people realized, okay, this UI scheme thing is not going to work. Our friends in Chrome made public statements to the effect that like, we do not want people to use UI schemes. It's like not great for the user. It puts the user's privacy at risk. So we did a lot of work together with Apple and others in the ecosystem, OWF Foundation, to figure out how can we actually get a better presentment API. And the result is the W3C Digital Credentials API, which seems to be embraced by a lot of different parties. We also started porting the project to Kotlin multi-platform. Half the code was in Java, half the code was in Kotlin. So we just decided, like, if we're going to be a useful library, we need to support both platforms. So we started doing that, started getting it to compile on iOS. That was also the year where we joined the Funke. So we added support for SD-Jort and OpenID VP, OpenID for VCI. And another test event. Test events are very important, so we went to that. In 2025, up until then, the project's name was Identity Credential. And there's at least 7 other projects just inside Google with that name because it's so generic. So the foundation actually had asked us to rename it. It's hard to find a good name. We finally came up with a name, Multipaz, so we renamed it. We did more Interop testing in the Netherlands earlier this year, and we also done a lot of remote Interop testing with the OpenID Foundation in preparation for the 1.0 release coming up. So Interop testing is very important, I think, to make sure that we interpret the standards the same way that others do. And then finally, last month, we had our first release with the new name, the first release with iOS support, which is Multipaz 090. So yeah, I'm going to zoom in and talk a little bit about the different things of the project and then show some demos. So we have components in all 3 phases of the triangle. As Troy mentioned, we have on the issuer side, code you can run to actually mint credentials. You can generate the MSOs, you can generate the jorts and everything you need. On the wallet side, we have code for the wallet, both on the device and also on the wallet servers, on the wallet's backend, including the cloud secure area. We have support for issuance protocols. Our philosophy is that it's a lot easier to do issuance protocols that runs through a server that then has a private protocol that talks to the app. Of course, privacy is a concern here. So data is typically end-to-end encrypted from the wallet app to the issuer, but it flows through the wallet server. The reason for that is that it allows you to use things like push notifications, which are typically hard to do at scale for an issuer that don't necessarily want to be concerned about what platform they're running on, whether that's Android or iOS. We also do support in the libraries, of course, direct issuance to the device, but we don't think that's the best approach. But that's more an opinion. That's how you implement your app. Our libraries do support both. And then obviously you have on the verifier side, we have code running in the Reader app for like requesting and verifying credentials received. So we support the 1813.5 proximity protocol. And similarly, we have code on the verifier's website when you use things like OpenID for VP to request a credential through a website. Common to all these three phases, like issuance, wallet, verifiers, they all need to access secure hardware in some shape or form, right? All the data is signed. Was that a question? Sorry. Okay, I'll continue. So yeah, in the library stack, we have a secure area interface which abstracts all the secure hardware. So we have an implementation that just runs in software, right? So the key is actually stored. So it's completely visible to the wallet app. It's not very secure, but in some cases you don't need security, right? If it's a transit credential, a movie ticket credential, you don't really need that much security because it's time limited, and you actually would like portability, so you can easily like sync this credential from one of the devices that belong to the user to another. We also have an implementation on Android that like uses the key store key mint in the trusted execution environment. On iOS, it uses CryptoKit, which like uses the secure enclave, which is maybe a little bit more green than a trusted execution environment. And finally, the Strongbox implementation on Android like runs on a secure element, which is something where you can get to level of assurance high, because it is a like secure element that's like resistant to high attack potential attackers. And finally, we have support for Cloud HSM, and I'll have some demos for that. So we're multi-platform as well. So this is actually a photo of a Pixel phone on the left and an iPhone on the right. And this is our test app, which is part of the repo. And it's exactly the same app. It's just compiled onto both Android and iOS. So we can see the documents, we can zoom in on a credential, we can do proximity sharing according to 1813 Part 5. And yeah, you can see the consent dialog, which is part of the library, looks exactly the same. So this is, we like Compose multi-platform, Kotlin multi-platform quite a bit. There's a lot of like really serious production apps already using it. So of all the multi-platform solutions, and there are many out there, we get that. We think this one is very promising. So both our library stack and also our applications are all written with that in mind. So the libraries we support are the following. We have our core library, which is multi-platform. So we have wrappers for all the platform native cryptographic libraries. We're not writing our own crypto library. We don't think we need to. It's like pretty risky and it's hard to do. So we just wrap whatever is on the platform. So on iOS, CryptoKit. On Android, it's the JCA, typically backed by a bouncy castle interface, but with something other underneath, based on Boring SSL, essentially. We have our secure area abstraction, where we have software, Android key store, iOS secure enclave, and our cloud implementation. And this library also has support for all the like different serialization formats you use, CBOR, ASN1, X509. And then 2 credential formats so far. We're going to have more in the future, maybe. 2 seems to be a good number. That seems to be where the ecosystem is going. We also have support for NFC engagement and BLE with ISO 1813 Part 5. And it also has our very simple RPC system. The next library is basically just an abstraction of the different document types out there. So ISO MDoc and W3VC, different data models, but they look a lot the same. So this library abstracts that and allows you to define a PID. And then we can use it to both mint MDocs and SDJOTs, for example. It has canned requests, so it's easy to write a verifier. And currently we have, obviously, the driving license, the EU PID, photo ID, and we also have a couple of others, like the ISO COVID document type, the ISO vehicle registration, which is on track to be an international standard, and we have a simple movie ticket, which is a keyless credential. We have 2 other libraries, Models and Compose, which are basically libraries that help you write applications. So it has the model and the view, basically. And the goal for this is to provide everything you need to either write a wallet, a reader, or an issuance server. And we've seen people use this in production in all 3 different phases. So yeah, I have some demos and screenshots. So this is our wallet app. It's our old wallet app, by the way, which is written only for Android. It's the one that we also brought to the Funke competition. So when you start it, it looks like any other wallet app, right? It's empty. So you can add to wallet, and we support in this version 2 different document types. So driving license and PID. As you saw in the previous slide, we have like a web view component. So all these things can be put together so we can easily show rich text to explain to the user what they're about to do. And then in this particular example app, you can create a credential derived from a physical passport or like identity card. And as you can see here, I don't know if you can see my video, but I'm holding a German EID card, which happens to have a machine readable zone. So the idea is that you scan this machine readable zone according to Doc 9303 from ICAO. And then after that, you scan using NFC, and that retrieves all the data on the card. And that's then sent to the ID issuer. The ID issuer then mints an ISO MDoc in this case, an MDL, with the same data. And if you look at the credential that you have, and yeah, I used Gemini to generate this card. That's why it says driver of license, not driving license. When you get this credential back from the issuer, you can go in and look at it. And this is actually the photo from my passport, which was retrieved and signed by the passport issuer. This is not my birth date, by the way. But the point is we can get your data, get the holder's data from an existing document and mint new credentials from it that can then be presented. You can also go in and look at the actual underlying key, which in this case is signed by the issuer. And the reason it has this like red scary text and it says, showing this screen is not a secure way of sharing identity data. The verifier has no way to confirm the authenticity of the data. Use NFC or QR to share identity data in a secure and privacy-preserving manner. This is to not have people just hold their phone up to the verifier and say, hey, trust me. I mean, it could be a screenshot. So that's why we put that text in there. So when you have the credential, you can share it. And now that you have a credential in your wallet app, it invites the user to share it using NFC or QR code. If they do that, if they tap on a reader, the transaction starts. And I have a video of it in the next slide. You get a consent dialog, and you share the data, do a biometric gesture. The data is sent to the verifier, and the verifier has all these green check marks, which means that all the like checksums, all the signatures, cryptographic signatures were validated. The issuer was like authenticated and found in a trust list. So all the checks you need to do, which is standard will tell you how to do, were performed, and this is trustworthy information. So these are just example apps, part of our repo built on top of this library. And I have a video here, and please, there should be voiceover. Please let me know if you can hear it.
And this is a demo of MDoc proximity presentations with NFC engagement. This feature works even if you're not in the app. It's very simple. You just take your phone with the wallet on it, you tap it against the reader, and you get the request. You press share. You do the biometric authentication, and the data is shared.
All right, I just had to mute myself when it was on. Could people hear the audio?
We could hear the audio, David.
Okay, great. Thank you. I've once given this presentation with this thing muted and then talking over it. So cool. So yeah, that was a proximity presentation. Very simple. See if I can go to the next slide. Sharing over the internet. So sharing a credential to a website. So these are old. This UI is old, it has evolved, but the idea is the same. You go to a website that's requesting an MDL. In this case, the user just presses the request credential button. That invokes a function in the OS to allow the user to choose which of the credentials that are registered to use. And that is the user then shares it and the data is sent without any other intervention. I have a video of that as well I'm going to play.
Hi, this is a demo of online presentations using the W3C Digital Credentials API. So in this case, we have an ISO MDoc in the wallet. We can go in and look at all the data elements right here. And we can also look at the underlying credentials, which is issued by the Bundesdruckerei, and it's stored in Strongbox. So with this, we can go to our web browser, the verifier website, choose the W3C Digital Credentials API with the preview protocol, and we can try and request H/18. And Chrome wants the user to make sure that they trust the website requesting it. We press continue, and this invokes a function in the operating system that looks at all the registered credentials from all the wallet apps on which is installed. In this case, there's only one wallet app with a PID in MDoc format, which is our wallet. So we press continue, and this will invoke the wallet, which is now asking the user to consent sharing this information. And it will also do a biometric authentication. In this case, my face was not really in front of the phone, so we'll do a fingerprint instead. And now the data is shared and it's sent directly back to the website. There's no like redirects, any new windows being opened. It's just a very simple API. We can also request the mandatory data elements. It's much of the same. This time face auth worked. And even the full PID with all the data elements right here.
All right, so yeah, that was the Digital Credentials API. And if the user has more than one wallet installed, they will be able to choose which credential from which wallet to use. And it's all implemented in a very privacy-preserving way. So the wallet that is being chosen is actually the only one that will learn about the credential presentation event. That's quite important metadata.
Yeah.
And yeah, finally, we have a video very similar, shorter, that shows the same, just with a cloud secure area. So the only difference here is that the key lives in the cloud, and there is an additional PIN code in addition to the biometric gesture needed to authenticate it. So it actually does an RPC to a remote server, but it's done fast enough that the user won't even notice. It's a couple of 100 milliseconds. So let's see. So you also saw our online verifier. So that one is built, it's part of the project. It's using the doc types library. So you can see it understands all the different doc types that are registered, all the different canned requests like H/18, mandatory data elements, and so forth. It understands quite a lot of different protocols. And the nice thing is, if we add a new document type, it'll just automatically appear here. This is more a developer-oriented tool. We're going to add support for the developer to actually write free-form DAGL, DCQL. So it's more than just these canned requests. We think that's important because we think relying parties may have some difficulty learning Daggle, the query language. So giving them a website where they can try and type it in, we think might be helpful. Cool. So we're already 18 minutes left. So the plans and roadmap for the project, just quickly going to go through this. So we want to get to 1.0. We're at 0.90 now. We think most of the libraries are feature complete. We do plan to freeze the API or the data formats, internal protocols. We've done a lot of work to actually support that. So to get a warning if we accidentally break like a protocol. We are going to change API a little bit from there. We don't think it's going to be a lot of work for our downstreams to adapt to that. But yeah, 1.0 is probably 1 year away, I think. Multi-platform apps. Multi-platform is a new thing, so we're going to rewrite, basically port our wallet and reader apps, so they work both on Android and iOS. We also want to write companion apps for people's watches and Wear OS and watchOS. And our goal with these reference apps is to have them be good enough so they can be white labeled, basically. So if an issuer wants to have their own app, they can take this app, slap their own logo and name on it, and publish it under their own name, and then things can work. We're not planning to actually make these available to end users. That's not the goal of our project. But if other entities want to build products on top of it, that's something they can do. And then finally, the whole goal of the project is to prototype new features being worked on in SDOs. So we're already working with our colleagues, Abhi Shilat, on zero-knowledge proofs. Their CKP library is going to be available, I think, next month. We already have code for using it in this stack. Their library is very low level. In ISO, we've been defining an interface, and we've been implementing this. So what we'll be releasing will be the high-level stuff, building on top of their low-level library. We're working on holder device binding. We call it on-device identity verification, which is the process of having the wallet app or the hardware being used by the wallet app to actually match the appearance of whoever is operating the phone to the biometric template and the credential, typically the portrait image. So that's really not how things work today, but we think having this feature will be very useful for privacy. And there's a lot of work being done in SD17 working group 4 and ISO with what is going to be the 2320 part 5 standard. Payment confirmation transaction data, there's some interesting work going on there in various large-scale pilots. OpenID for VP has support for this, so we want to explore that. Query languages, we already implemented Daggle completely. It's in a branch right now that we're going to merge. Second edition 1813 part 5 also has a new query language, very similar to Daggle. Support for multiple documents, we support that, but it's a little clunky. A lot of SDO work is actually needed in that area. And then also request authorization, consent records, receipts. That's an important area. The EU is getting their feet wet with it, I would say, with the registration and access certificates. There's some interesting work going on in ISO SC 27. If you look at 27560, it talks a lot about how to actually have a data model around all this. It's pretty interesting. So that has to do with things like how do you convey a privacy policy, for example. Faster, better proximity presentment. I think people are starting to realize that having a tap and then having the user to go back and look at their phone might not work as well as they thought it would. So things like pre-consent, pre-authentication is an interesting topic, which would basically give people the like tap and you're done experience that they know from payments, for example. So we're prototyping that. We're looking into what needs changes and where. And finally, we're going to build the Utopia universe, or Valhalla universe, or something. Basically, we want to create a set of fictional credential issuers and relying parties. So you could have an identity issuer, you could as a credential issuer, you could have like the Brewery of Utopia, where you want to purchase alcohol both in person and online. And how does that work with like proving you're over 21 or 18, having loyalty cards, which could be a pseudonym credential. If you run your own company and you're a plumber, maybe you need to take money for work being done. So you need contracts to be signed that express what is being done. So we want to build these fictional issuers and relying parties, ideally on standard protocols, right? So any wallet and reader can use them, and this could be a resource for more than just our own wallets. So I think that's an important thing to be built. And I think it needs to be built in order to actually prototype the features and the protocols in the SDO. So we're hoping to find some time to work on that. And yeah, that's a photo we took at the Funke. So the Funke has a very particular style for photos. That's why we look so angry. I mean, that's why we look so serious. But yeah, it's if you're interested in getting involved, we have a GitHub repository. We have a Discord channel. We'll be at the next IW. We'll probably do a session on Multipaz. And we'll also be at the big Super Bowl of identity in Geneva. And with that, we'll take any questions. Hope it all made sense. I was just talking to a screen for 30 minutes.
You sounded good, and we could see all your slides. It went great, David.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was super interesting. I have a few questions, but just wanted to see who else has questions to start with.
I've got one. Thank you for the presentation. You mentioned that there was the discussion that resulted in the digital credential API as a result of deciding that URI schemes were not secure. Did I mishear what you said, or is that roughly accurate?
No, that's absolutely accurate. There's a lot of discussion back and forth. Chrome had like an announcement that they were planning to deprecate UI schemes. There's a lot of back and forth going on. Apple made an original proposal for the W3C API. Very early days, yeah.
What do I Google to like find those discussions to learn more about that conversation? What do I search for? Or do you have a link that you can throw at me that gets me started? Is there?
So
I'm not in any way contesting it. I would just like to know more of the details of those discussions, and I haven't seen them before.
I can definitely find I just Google deprecate UI scheme identity, and Gemini gave me maybe I can just present that screen. So yeah, I just Googled this basically.
Okay, that'll get me started on it. Thank you, appreciate that. That's the only question.
Sure. All right. Any other questions?
Shar, I'll let you go. Shar, if you want to go first, then I'll go.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I was curious about the proximity presentation. You said there's a pre-consent and pre-auth step that you're thinking about. How do you think that will work or does work?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think so some products in the marketplace, the Utah MDL, already uses a kind of pre-consent that the user, the holder, when they go into the app, they have to actually, before they can present a QR code, they have to select the use case, whether you're buying alcohol or something else. And when you have selected that, you present the QR code and the verifier can get the data. So that's not actually the best way to do it, because the user might not know the use case, right? The holder might not know which button to press. There are other models. Some people talked about when you actually approach the verifier, we can know using things like ultra wideband that, okay, we are approaching an identity verifier, we're approaching the TSA. So that's going to be the use case, and then give the users a chance to pre-consent. That's one way to do it. I think my favorite way to do it is that when you provision your credential, it will ask you, do you want to pre-consent to sharing your data with the TSA when you go through? Obviously, that doesn't work at scale, right? We can't have the user pre-consent to 100 different things. So I think the first time you go to, say, the liquor store around the corner and they ask for your identity, maybe there's a remember pre-consent for this relying party. And then the next time you do it, you just tap and you get a notification that your identity data was shared according to your pre-consent with a button like revoke or whatever. So there are many different ways to do it, I think. But I think as someone who has gone through the TSA myself with the Google ID pass and tapped, it's a very stressful situation, actually. It's like you tap your phone and then the TSA person is in front of you, so it's already stressful. There's a screen saying, look at the camera. The TSA guy is saying, look at the camera. And then you hold your phone. The phone has a prompt with all this information, right? Like they ask for 8 different data elements for the TSA. And I have to do that. Like there's a lot of external pressure. So I think it's really important to solve this problem. I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. It seems like always a balance of convenience and privacy, and thinking about in this situation, is the holder going to be in a place where they have the ability to make an informed decision, like in a stressful TSA
Exactly.
situation. Yeah, interesting. Thank you.
Cool.
I'm gonna jump ahead before Shar asks another question, but I've got to leave for another call. But I wanted to ask both David and Troy, how can folks get involved with Multipaz, and where can they help? What do you need? How can the OpenWallet Foundation community participate? Are there good first tickets? Like how can folks get involved? Because there will be folks who watch this. It's going up on YouTube after the meeting. We put all the wallet interoperability SIG calls up there, but like how can folks get involved if they want to help?
Absolutely, yeah. So look at our GitHub issues and pull requests. It's fairly technical, and the best way to get involved is to join the Discord channel and just like ping us, say, hey, I'm interested in this or that, and we'll work with you, create tickets, and like get people involved. So yeah, most of our contributors are, like many other projects, unfortunately from just one entity, Google in this case. We do have external contributors, especially users of our library. They send us pull requests. Sometimes some of those users don't want to use the public channels for obvious reasons, right? So they sometimes get in touch with the maintainers directly, and that's fine. We prefer people to get in touch using the public channels. So.
Awesome. And for those joining us, I've shared some links in the chat. I'm going to copy and paste those links into the YouTube video so folks can find them. But the GitHub repo for Multipaz, I just shared the Discord link. If you're not on our Discord, please join us. That's where we're having these conversations in real time. We do appreciate it. That was a great presentation. I'm going to hand it back to Shar, but thank you, David and Troy. That was great.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Sean. Let's see, are there other questions from the group? I had one more. What were the specific takeaways from participation in the Sprint Gate program?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say that first of all, great to see Germany reaching out and actually asking the community to like, hey, what are your thoughts on this and that? So the whole German EUDI consultation process is really good, because a lot of these things are really complicated, especially in Europe, and also really, really important. So, and using the Funke to actually have different projects propose different ways to like solve hardware-backed security, or what's the approach to privacy, how do we do consent dialogues. I think that was really useful. For our project, yeah, we just got to learn a lot more about the discourse in Europe, privacy is super important, more important than I realized from just sitting at the sidelines. So yeah, I think that was the takeaway. Troy, you want to add some more color?
Yeah, I was going to say that and this is to add on to about the discourse in Europe. I think while there is like this architecture reference framework for EUDI wallets, I think everybody kind of is looking at Germany, given how active they were with the Funke and the community they built through that event. They really like other countries was what I mean, like look towards Germany as being sort of the vanguard, if you will. So when France comes along, which I know they're building a wallet, but like when other like France and some of the other EU member states come along and start building out the requirements, like they're definitely going to look to what happened in the Funke and what was produced from Germany as sort of the real reference implementation, if you will. So that was a really great, I think, takeaway from the Funke.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
Maybe I jump in. Can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Perfect. Well, first of all, thank you very much, David, for the presentation. I wanted to ask, so related with your participation on Funke project. So let's say, what are your drivers when it comes to targeting ecosystems and prioritizing roadmap? Let's say, are you targeting the UD wallet or MDL ecosystem? And then how do you prioritize your roadmap when it comes to support of SDJOTs or OpenID for VC credential exchange?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think we want to make sure that we work on things that are being used right now, are planning to be used. So we want to be able to affect as many users as possible. We also want to, I think, really participate in some of the SDOs that we think are important and help guide them with our experiences. Okay, we implemented this actually doesn't work, and then the SDO can go back and change things. So it's a little bit back and forth. I think it's a lot influenced by what SDOs we participate in. So for me, it's ISO, OpenWallet Foundation, W3C.
Maybe last question from my side. So I saw on one of your demos that there was this process of self-derivation of an e-passport. Did I? Okay, so and then I would say here you have worked with Photo ID standard for capturing all the, let's say, DTC data from the MRZ, I would say, or what is the process behind this self-derivation process that we saw on the demo?
Correct. So yeah. So if you have a like this German EID card with a machine readable zone and a chip inside it, so you can extract all the data from it, and this is how the Funke process actually worked. They wanted us to scan the plastic card, send that to Bundesdruckerei. Bundesdruckerei issued the MDL. The MDoc, which was put in the device. MDoc and SDJ, they issued two credentials. And we have the same thing in the Google ID Pass in Google Wallet, right? That allows you to take your US passport, do the same thing, and Google will mint an ISO MDoc. So that was actually, two different projects at the same time that actually decided to do that. So we just built that as part of the library that we can do a Doc 9303 read of the data, and then we already had the code for issuing MDocs. So it was a pretty nice thing, and I think it's a model you'll probably see in a lot of places, because you gotta do your user proofing in some place, right? So possession of a card, knowledge of the PIN code in case of the German EID card, that's two authentication factors, which is a lot better than like in the US, where we don't have chips on the plastic cards, right? We have people take a photo of a plastic card, and then we do a selfie. It's safe, it's secure, but it's a bit nicer if you actually have a chip in the card. So we thought that was important to write that code, make it available, and it's in our libraries.
Many thanks.
Awesome. All right, it looks like we are just over time. Thank you so much, David and Troy, for this great presentation and great discussion. Really glad you could join us, and thanks for your time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah,
Cheers.
absolutely. Thank you. And thanks everyone for joining. Our next presentation is next week on the new TypeScript projects incubated in the OpenWallet Foundation. So please join us for that. And yeah, have a great rest of your day, everyone.
Cool. Cheers.
Thank you so much. Bye.